I'm Caroline Poland from Poland and Associates Consulting, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the window of tolerance and educational settings. My third strategy is to help students in your classroom understand what an activating event looks like. Those could be thoughts, emotions, actions or reactions by someone else, body sensations, trauma triggers, trauma relivings, and flashbacks from the past. I've talked about in other videos in the Trauma and the Nervous System series, which I'll link below, that our sympathetic nervous system doesn't just activate when we're actually in a threat, but it's any perception of any potential threat. In the classroom, that could look like perceived or potential judgment from peers. It could look like worries about failing a test or looking stupid during a presentation. It could be bullying that's occurring in between classes or before or after school. It could look like the reality of a very hard home life or interactions with parents. It could be text messages that student is getting throughout the day. We don't always know what those activating events are, but if we can have conversations about what activating events even are and examples of what those might include, I think that's really important to helping students to understand that window of tolerance and empowering them in their own life to understand what's happening in their body. When we don't know what's happening in our body or why we're responding in the way that we do, it feels overwhelming and it can feel concerning and take a lot of focus off of what we actually need to focus on, which is learning in the classroom. And by educating about what those activating events could be, we're normalizing that we're all going to have activating events and we can do something about them. We're helping them to gain awareness of their own life, and then we can do something about it. My fourth strategy is that we want to help students to develop a felt sense of safety in the classroom. If we don't have a felt sense of safety, we're going to get activated outside of that window of tolerance, outside of our parasympathetic nervous system, and we're going to get activated in that sympathetic nervous system fight or flight dominance, or we're going to go into freeze. And by helping students to develop that felt sense of safety in the present here and now moment, we allow their brain to be in the healthiest balance possible for learning and remembering and growing. So with that felt sense of safety, we're looking at sensory grounding in the present here and now moment, as well as utilizing that social engagement system that we all have. So here are some helpful questions to ask students as they're developing that felt sense of safety in the classroom. So you could ask them, who is a safe person in your life in general, or who is a safe person in this classroom? Are there safe objects, colors, or textures in the room that you can focus on in this moment? Where's a safe place in the classroom that you could go and regulate? Again, we want to empower students that they can have some agency in their life in creating that felt sense of safety. And if they come from a hard place or don't have a healthy home life, maybe there's no felt sense of safety there. Maybe they haven't experienced a felt sense of safety with a caregiver before. And you as an educator can be that safe person for them as long as you have worked on creating a healthy nervous system for yourself that they can co-regulate off of. And then my fifth strategy is to implement regular movement and sensory activities throughout the day so that students can get up and move and engage in their senses. That will bring them back into this present here and now moment. And movement and how we breathe helps us to regulate our nervous system and help us to engage in that healthy fluctuation when we get activated into sympathetic nervous system to bring ourselves back into parasympathetic nervous system dominance. So look for little ways that students can move and how you can engage in sensory activities. And some of those, again, I've talked about in that video series on how to widen that window of tolerance, and so watch those. But I will also do a separate video on strategies that you can use to help students in a classroom widen their window of tolerance as well. Like I said, in that 3-part series, there are a number of different activities that you as an educator can use and you can use in your classroom with students to help them widen their window of tolerance as well. The more that we can make this conversation system-wide or school district-wide, the better, because if students can start to be educated in this in preschool and kindergarten, and it can just move up grade by grade with them, the better off they're going to be. Students spend a lot of time in the educational setting every day, and so even if they come from a place of trauma background and hard places or an unhealthy or potentially unsafe environment when they go home, we can begin to teach them helpful strategies that can change their life when they reach adulthood. We can help their brains develop in a healthier context. We can be that healthy co-regulator for them so they can learn to self-regulate. And so let me encourage you, if you are an administrator or on a school board, to begin to have this conversation system-wide. And I think that's really important. It's a great way to support individual educators and protect against compassion fatigue and burnout and secondary traumatic stress. It will allow educators to stay in a healthier window of tolerance and keep educators potentially in the teaching profession as a whole, but it's also of benefit to our students. And if they can learn to regulate well in elementary school, they can learn, they can grow, they can imagine in a healthy context. And isn't that what we want for students? And isn't that what we want for us as educators? You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Poland & Associates, and my website polandassociates.com, and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss out on future videos.